Eric Koretz, welcome to the Creative Gap podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your day today to have a little chat with me.
Thanks for having me.
So the first thing I want to ask you is something that I've been really curious about lately, and it's, I guess, talking to DPs that are at a level that I aspire to get to one day. Where you are in your career right now, looking back to when you started, what do you think it really took to get to where you are today? Like in your own words, looking at the struggles, the successes, failures, like what do you feel really amounted to where you are today?
Yeah, it took my whole career to to get where. I think a lot of, from a general sense, yeah, it is a lot of failure, learning from failure, successes, learning from successes. I think because of this industry, there's no one way to work your way up. There's multiple ways, so there's no. Unlike a design or a corporate job, you don't have this ladder that you aspire to reach, your goals. So you just have to be creative in how you get there. So, um, yeah, I went to design school for undergrad. I went to film school for grad school at AFI, and then I just started working. And earlier on, I made a decision to uh, right out of school to not crew and to just
Mm,
shoot as much as I could. Um, and I had a design background to fall back on, and I had a small design company before film school that I could pick up work here and there freelance to sort of fill in the gaps when I wasn't working. But I got lucky earlier on and started doing documentaries. Um, and then those documentaries led to commercials, and then the commercials led to movies, and the movies led to TV and movies. So it was just sort of, I just sort of tried to, put my stamp on things, whatever I was doing, and just be creative and try and tell stories.
mm. Do you think in the beginning, as you're pursuing DPing, I feel like there has to be like a level of like undeniable self-belief that you're going to make it in a way?
Yeah.
Because I feel like how hard it is and how, up and down with, you're busy and then you're not busy. You might not be working for a couple months or a couple weeks. I guess just really truly believing in yourself. Did you feel that you had that kind of like, no matter what it takes, I'm going to make it mentality?
Yeah, I think I've I've always, how do I say this without I've always sort of had a belief in my creative abilities, and I always ran businesses when I was younger. So in high school, in high school, I had a design company that we made websites for actually large. My first client was like Giant Bicycles, which was
Oh,
um, a worldwide company. It was sort of the birth of like designed websites for the internet. And so I had that in high school, and then I parlayed that. I was doing that while I was going to design school at Syracuse University. And I always had that work ethic and belief in my creative abilities and on the business side. And I think you have to throw yourself into this business 100% and believe you can do it and really want to do it and know there's nothing else on earth that you want to do to really succeed in the film industry, because it's incredibly hard and cutthroat, and you have to take a lot of negativity um, and push that away and just be positive and push through. So I think that's something we can talk about it a little bit, but developing um, you're not just your creative skills, but your mental skills as
mm,
well is incredibly important. And I'm an advocate for mental health and meditation and improving those skills. And as you work on those, that can only help you in the film business as well.
Definitely. It's something that I wanted to touch on because I listened to a few interviews and you kind of did talk about the idea of kind of studying and focusing on like human psychology. And I think
Yeah.
as a DP, a lot of what people get wrong about the job is that your job is to light and shoot, and that's really it. But in my experience, as I've grown to become a DP that has worked with crews of like 3 and 3, 5 and 5, it's more about leadership and essentially just directing your crew and collaboration rather than like you having to move equipment, because very rarely are you even touching equipment at a certain level. So
Yeah.
I guess for you, when did you start realizing how important understanding human psychology and I guess understanding how you can become a better leader was?
I discovered that earlier on, actually, before I was even in film, in design school, and with running my companies. In that, um, I was always interested with design. You're interested in how the page can move people to, buy something or evoke a feeling. And that led me into psychology. It led me into, you know, to meditation. It led me into all these things, studying the mind. And I felt like those qualities would help in my design work. And then later on, when I went into film, it's even more so
Mm,
because you're trying to evoke emotion in people. It's not just does it look beautiful, but how does it make you feel? How does it move the audience? How does an image um, evoke the feeling of the script and what you're trying to the messages that you're trying to get across? If your image is just beautiful, but it's not bringing out any emotion or bringing the story forward, it's pointless.
mm,
So, and I think the leadership qualities come into play. I mean, as whether you're a small set or a bigger set, you're working with hundreds of people or 10 people or 5 people, but you want to bring out the best in everyone to make them work, not to make them work, but you want to bring out the best in everyone to make your work their work and make it work for the story. So you have to have good leadership qualities to to bring out the best in everyone.
mm,
So when I'm on set, I try and be, as much as I can because I'm a human being, but the calm center of the storm where there's this whirlwind around you and everyone's going fucking crazy because for some reason film sets a lot of times bring out the worst in
mm.
people because they haven't worked on themselves, and you want to be there to almost be like a psychologist, help them through that, but also help them through that so that you bring the story forward and
Sure.
and make and tell the story like how it needs to be told.
I'm curious about how you approach your decision making when it comes to crew providing you with ideas, the director providing ideas, and you kind of being the one to essentially like mitigate certain ideas.
Yeah.
And I guess how do you decide like, okay, this idea might work, but I don't like this idea. The director has idea, but it might not be good for the story. Like, how do you work on the communication between the people that are coming to you with these ideas?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a layered answer because there's no definitive answer for that. But what I like to do is I feel like um, there is no I. So if someone comes with an idea, or the director has an idea, and like my operator has an idea, my gaffer, whoever, I have an open set where they can talk about it, bring it up, we can explore it, and then it's just a discussion about,
Mm,
will this work? Does this work for this scene, the shot? And then working with the director because we're telling that we're trying to make their vision come true. Does this work for how you're going to edit? All of those things. But I try and have an open set where everyone can feel inclusive and feel like they're part of the process because they are. Because if it's just me and I'm like, okay, this is my idea, you go do that, you go do this. I don't want to hear anything from you. Um, no one works well that way.
right. And I think
So
it's like
it's
a thin
creativity.
a thin line too, because you want people to come to you with ideas. You want to be an open book. You also have to be the person that does say no to certain ideas though as well, but make sure that they know that just because you said no, that doesn't mean them to stop coming to you with ideas. So that to me is a very thin line.
Yeah, and that's where studying psychology and
Mm,
those sort of things come into play, where you can, your operator, let's say, comes up to you and be like, I like this, love this high shot up here. Um, and if it doesn't work for the story, it's like, okay, that's a beautiful shot. That won't work for this particular scene, but later on, maybe that'll work for this scene.
mm,
Maybe let's keep that in mind for something else. But for now, let's do this.
mm,
Or it's a great idea and you use it. So it's really just about making people feel good about themselves and being part of the process. And I think that's really important. I hear lots of stories of, whether other DPs or directors and the negative. Sometimes people work from a very negative place, out of whether it's out of fear or just that they don't know how to communicate.
mm.
And I hear stories of crew saying they hate that and they don't want to work that way. And so as I've heard that, I try and be more inclusive, um, and I think better art comes from that.
Right. You said something that sparked a question in terms of leadership, and I think your ability to lead is like a direct correlation to how confident you are in your abilities. I
Yeah.
guess throughout your career, how have you kind of gained confidence in your craft and your ability to lead a team and just be a good DP?
I think by fucking up.
Right.
I think it's first of all, it's okay to fuck up. That's how you learn, and by owning it. And I think by not saying, okay, this is mine, by being inclusive and open, you realize that you know sometimes you learn something from these
Mm,
mistakes. Sometimes you
yeah.
get fired from these mistakes, but it's all part of the process.
So taking accountability.
Yeah, it's accountability, and I think it's helpful to. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly accountability that it helps with accountability.
Mm.
Uh,
I guess kind of go into the mental health side of things. You know, for me, where I am in my career, and a lot of people that I talk to, where, I'm about 3 or 4 years in as being a full time DP, I'm still in the phase where I could be very busy and then I could not be working. And like a lot of the people that I know also might not be working for weeks or months. And
mhm.
I guess just the how to deal with the up and down of this industry can be
Yeah,
very hard for certain people. I guess
yeah,
if you can kind of reflect on your beginnings of how you kind of overcame it and maybe where you are now, and if you still feel some of those things as well.
yeah. I mean, first off, this industry isn't for everyone. It's a fucking hard industry. It's terrible for your mental health. It's terrible for your social life. It's terrible for your relationships. There's no sugarcoating that. This is a fucked up industry that destroy destroys lives.
Right.
So if you can't take that, you need to keep that in mind and consider that when you're choosing this as a field, because there will be ups and downs. There will be really dry spells, no matter for most people, um, and you have to learn how to. It really goes back to what we talked about from the beginning: working on your mental health, getting your mind right, using tools that can help you when you're working and when you're not working
Mm,
to help you mentally to get through life. Um, and then having relationships with people that help you get through it as well. Whether it's your wife, your husband, your girlfriend, boyfriend, friends that are understanding of your lifestyle and help you get through that. So
mm,
for me, meditation is a big part of it, and breathing exercises. There's lots of avenues for that. For you know whether it's meditation breathing or simple box breath or certain kinds of breathing that just helps you with your state of mind. All of that is in play, and then
mm.
having whatever you do when you're not working, you know help for your mental health as well,
Right.
because a lot of downtime in between.
I guess besides meditation, do you find that other aspects of physical health have helped you as well? Like, are you into
Yeah.
fitness at all besides
Yeah.
meditation?
Yeah. And I should add exercise for sure, or whatever you're doing with it. For me, I had been doing yoga, but I need to get back into it. But, boxing,
Mhm.
biking, hiking outdoors.
You a fan of hot yoga?
I haven't done it in a while.
Hmm.
Actually, I had built a gym in my house, and I don't have that there. So
Mm.
I would be doing that.
I love
Um,
hot yoga. It like transformed my life. Really
it's
did.
great. And then saunas and
Oh
cold
yeah.
plunges, and that sort of there's the 15-minute sauna, however you can handle in the cold plunge back to the
Mhm.
sauna. That Nordic method is very good for your for health and mind and body. So
So I guess like maybe from your perspective, being a DP at like the level and like what that position means, I guess if you really want to be at the top of your game, you kind of have to treat your body and mind a certain way where, other people, I don't want to say other crew, but just like other people might not have to consider as much because of how mentally sharp and how physically sharp you have to be at all times.
yeah, and I do, and it's very hard when you're shooting. I just
Mm,
came off TV show for Netflix called Ransom Canyon. I was on for 7 months straight. We didn't have a week off because budgets are so constricted now. They don't even consider giving you time to a little bit of break in between because they're just trying to get through it,
right.
which is another story and terrible. But um, I got COVID for the first time uh, halfway through, and then I took Paxlovid, and then got COVID like 3 weeks later
Wow.
because they prescribed it to me for some reason. But I guess there's a lot of rebound effect.
Mm,
And then I through that I sort of suffered through some long term COVID effects with sunlight exposure, and I really realized how much being in good physical and mental shape is necessary to kind of get you through those long hauls when in time when I couldn't be exercising. I had to figure out ways to sort of get my mind right um, throughout it, and so it was a challenge, and
mm,
got through. But like as a DP, if you're not eating well and you're not functioning well with sleep, it really affects your work on set. So for me, I'm vegan. In certain areas, it's very hard for me to eat well because catering they have vegan
smaller
options, but
options.
they
Yeah.
don't really consider the health aspects of it. It's heavy oils, or
Mm,
it's you know pan like there's not cooked well,
yeah.
cooked well. So you have to either bring in outside food or eat around the edges and figure out what you can eat. But so it's all symbiotic: eating well, working out, mental
Right.
health. And when you're working a 15-hour day, you're not going to come home and work out. So you have to
Right.
figure out ways to sort of work that into your life.
As I was gonna ask, like in more detail, if you can, like explain, like, because you're on a 7 month shoot and you're working, 10 to 15 hours a day. How do you even prioritize that? Whether it's 15 minutes of or 5 minutes of breath work, like how do you organize your schedule in a chaotic, already built schedule of like a film?
Yeah, you have to set it up into your day. So I would, for the most part, try and do breath work when I woke up in the morning, at least 15 minutes. If it wasn't too early, because I'm not the most morning person, so I try and fit that in. Um, and then sometimes that's all you can do. Sometimes I would bring some, rubber band workouts to work and try and do it during lunch, or just walk during lunch.
Mm,
And when I come home, I'm not the kind of person that can do anything when I get home except for sit and stare at a wall,
right.
or
You're
move.
mentally exhausted.
Yeah. So, and then the weekends, you have to do whatever you can on the weekends to kind
Right.
of, you can't really catch up, but, just do something other than just,
Mm.
falling apart.
I guess it's like a per project basis because I've heard you say in some other interviews that during lunch breaks you might have to scout for something else. But do you
Yeah.
find that sometimes you need to just be away from people for a certain time to like let your mind empty? Because
Yeah.
for me, like I do mostly commercials. I've done one feature, and I notice that sometimes I have the energy to be around people for lunch, and then other times I just need to lay on the floor
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yeah. I'm this for the most part I'm go away for lunch to recharge. So whether it's my office if I'm on stage or just somewhere quiet where no one else is around where I can just sort of not have anything thrown at me and
Yeah.
just and sometimes you can't, but for the most part that's what I try and do. I'm an introvert extrovert.
Mm,
So I need that alone time to recharge and to and then also being aware, are you introverted, are you extroverted, what do you need? Don't
right.
be afraid to take that for yourself because in this business everyone is trying to take your time and your energy or one or both, and you need to set boundaries and what you need to do to recharge
Mm.
as much as you can.
In terms of, I guess, just dealing with stress on set and mental health, and I've been studying Stoicism lately, and I think how that kind of directly relates to being a DP is like in terms of just like always having sort of a calm presence, regardless of what's happening.
Yeah.
How do you find yourself dealing with situations on set where things are going wrong, nothing like you're behind, and you find some internal stress building up? What are some methods of ways for you to kind of cope with that and deal with it in a way that is like, I'm still the leader, I'm still the person that needs to present myself in a certain way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, there's a lot of tools if you have, if you can separate yourself for a minute. And it's just simple, quick breaths,
Mm,
and just letting it out, and then thinking about the problem, getting to it, or just concentrating your breath. People don't even have to know that you're doing it. You just breathe in and breathe out, and just take a few breaths, and then get back into whatever is thrown at you. A lot of It's hard to when someone's yelling at you
yeah,
or shit's falling apart. It's hard to be calm, but you have to find a way to sort of take a moment and say, okay, it's not me. This is the situation. Separate the I from it, and then go into it to try and figure out what you can fix, what you can't, whose emotions you can deal with, whose emotions you can't. If someone needs to vent, just letting them
mm,
vent without sort of firing back at them. We're all human, so even I will fire back at someone sometime
right.
if they're attacking me, which doesn't happen too often. But it's you need you just have to learn that there's so many emotions on set that and people are always coming at you, and you have to figure out. It's almost like an aikido way of deflecting
Mm,
back. Um, uh, the Buddhist way is it's
right,
not you. It's so you have to um, you just have to figure out a way to solve the problem without getting letting anger
right.
come into play, or fear,
Mm,
because there's a lot of fear on set because you have the pressure of the schedule, you have the pressure of people pushing at you to figure something out, you have the pressure of everyone looking to you for the answers, and you have to figure a way to deflect that fear and push it back in, and then figure out the best solution to the
mhm.
problem.
Do you still find that with that fear, as I feel like you probably feel, we all feel, there's also still a level of insecurity that you feel about your ability? Do you find that that you still have some sort of insecurity about yourself and your work as you are on a project?
For me personally,
Yeah.
I think as human beings, everyone has some element of insecurity in them. It's human nature,
Mm,
and it's just recognizing, oh, this is an insecurity that I have, and is that going to let you control your
mm,
ideas and emotions, or is it not? And then if you recognize, I'll just say for quote unquote your deficiencies or your insecurities or your and you recognize them for what they are, it's easier to not let them run you.
right.
Um, so when you're on set and you can't figure something out and you're freaking out, you realize if you take a moment and take a step back and say, okay, this is my insecurities coming up. How can I figure this out without letting that
Mm,
run my life. That
mm.
that's the step. And yeah,
Like,
that
yeah,
goes to studying things besides filmmaking.
right. Mm. So I guess tying into what we just talked about a little bit, this might be a question where you might not even know the answer, to be honest, but like when you get approached with ideas or comments, how quickly do you respond back, or how much time do you take to think about your response prior to actually saying it?
Right.
Because I find myself still sometimes almost spewing out a response and then 3 seconds later regretting what I just said, thinking about, oh, I should have took it 2 seconds to think about that before I said, yes, let's do that, or no, let's not do that.
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know if I have a full answer to that. I
Right.
mean,
It's a hard one because you don't really think about it too much.
yeah, I mean, I try not to answer things if I don't know the answer. I think it's okay to say, I actually don't know. Let's think about
Mm,
that for a second and let's talk through this. If we do it this way, this will happen and it'll evoke this emotion. If we do it this way, this will happen and it'll evoke this emotion, this feeling, this imagery. What
mm,
do you want as if you're talking to the director, what do you want to say with this shot? It's
I love
I
that.
think a lot of times answering a question with a question is good because um, I might not know the answer because I'm trying to get the director's vision across.
Right.
So I want to know what they need for the shot and the scene, and it's kind of you're there to sort of help bring that out of them.
I
Um,
love that
yeah,
idea of just like not having to know the answer all the time and saying, I don't know. I think it speaks to the idea of vulnerability as a leader and
yeah,
allowing people to experience that with you for them to also feel comfortable as well.
yeah, yeah. I think the key to that is, I mean, I say I don't know a lot because
Mhm.
I might not know, but I'm like, I don't know, but I know we can figure this out.
Right.
Um, and I think you can tell a lot of times when someone is like, they say something and they don't know the answer to that, but they say it in such a way that it's like, we're going to do this, or this is what we need to do without just because just because they think you want them to have the answer.
Mm.
And it's usually very apparent. So, I think pulling back from that and just realizing this is the film industry. There's lots of answers to problems, and what's the best solution or one of the best solutions for how we want to shoot this on set. Being able to pivot is a very key thing.
Love that. I
Yeah.
want to switch a little bit. I know that we are a ways away from Ozark, but I have to talk about it a little bit because it is by far my favorite show ever created. When people ask me what I want to do in my future, like what would be an ideal show, Ozark is my answer without a
Great.
doubt. It's literally like I've seen it all the way through 3 times.
Nice.
It never gets old. I just have to say that.
Thank
But
you.
it's not even really a technical question, other than just like from my perspective, looking at Ozark as like this would be a dream. When you were on that project, do you recognize sometimes that like you might be living the dream that you have always wanted to be like doing?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would say no because I knew that I loved the show as my favorite show, and I felt very lucky to be shooting it. But I think that's a tough question to answer because I think if you're sitting there saying I'm living the dream, I mean, I just try and live in the moment,
Right.
and so I'm not. I'm always thankful for whatever work I'm doing in the creation of the moment, but like you're never there, and you're never saying, "Ah, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to get better from here. I might as well just stop."
All right.
Because you can't stop. So it's more just living in the moment and enjoying your
Mm,
moments as much as you can, and because it's rare that you get to create the kind of content that you want to create. Like Ozark was a very unique show in that it's set up for the cinematography. Everything is about the look of the show and how that tells the story and the mood. And no other show, for the most part, that I've been on has been that cinematography centric.
Right.
Um, so it's rare, and you have to appreciate that and use it and not take it for granted. But yeah, one second, just
No worries.
joking.
um,
Ransom Canyon, the newest show.
yeah, I was gonna ask you towards the end of this about it. But I
Also,
guess one of my last questions, really, for Ozark. I mean, I could spend hours on it, but I don't want to.
you can if you want.
Is I know you've talked a little bit about your relationship with Jason Bateman, but I'm more curious about working with an actor that's also the director, executive producer. Like that trio of a person has to be kind of a lot at times. Do
Yeah.
you find yourself as a DP working with a director who's also acting that you have to take on certain directing roles at times?
Not with Jason.
Mm,
Jason is incredibly good at uh, compartmentalizing. In fact, I think when he's acting, he can separate his mind where he's also directing at the same time
it's crazy.
and acting and thinking about the holistic nature of the show. I mean, incredible in that way.
Mm,
So I never felt that way. I did a short film with my wife recently, which was great. It's starting to go to festivals now, and
amazing.
it's that's more because she was acting and directing, so it's more of like talking about what we just saw in the shot, and and helping sort of with that in a different way,
Mm,
which was great. So I you can take on that role to some degree, but not I was not by any means directing in that. It's just giving my opinion on how I felt the shot should go in the performance and
mm,
that sort of thing.
mm. I guess like slightly technical. I rarely try to talk about technical stuff, but you came in the last season and there's already a huge, look that's been established
Yeah,
already. So how do you, on like a micro level, establish your voice
right.
in it? Like, what does that
Yeah.
even look like?
I think you're because it was shot in a way that I love to shoot already,
Mm,
and I knew how to shoot heavy contrast and um, you know, characters coming out of the shadows and camera movement that sort of tells the story and evokes emotion in a lot of ways. So that was already my language.
mm,
So for me, it was just putting certain lighting touches on it that in a way that I like to work, and just these small things that sort of add up in a lot of ways. Whether it's from framing or the lighting. It's hard because it's a big show, so you're
yeah.
coming on and everyone, especially on Ozark, a lot of the crew had been working on that for four seasons. So everyone has their Ozark way of doing
Right.
things. So it's sort of bending that in a way
Mm,
that makes it your own, but not coming in and be like, I'm going to make my stamp on this.
right.
It's the subtle things that make a difference, I think.
Mm. I guess
Um,
just on like a fun little note, like when you first arrived on set, was there like a level of like fandom a little bit, like seeing the house for the first time, meet like were you like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I had the opportunity to come in and like while the Sean, the other DP, was shooting, go to set and meet
Mhm.
everyone and see the sets, and that was a moment when I was like, I'm actually doing my dream
That's
job
so
right now,
cool.
and I'm talking to Marty.
That's so cool.
But once I'm never once I got through that moment, that
Mhm.
it's just get to work
Right.
because there's no. I'm very used to it. For some reason on many shows. I've come in and just been like, okay, here you go. You're taking over in 2 weeks, or like that sort of thing, or on Lioness,
Mhm.
Special Ops Lioness, I uh, was supposed to be shooting episodes. What did I do? 5 and 6, and then we lost the DP for 3 and 4. So I started that with one day of prep, started shooting, and I ended up doing that both the entire 3 and 4 instead of 5 and 6. So like I'm
Right.
used to kind of coming in
Mm.
Just being like, okay, let's go with the flow and figure it out.
Right.
And I think all the things that we talked about earlier has helped me with that. I've done that on other shows as well.
Mm.
Some which I'm, just I come in and I'll do. My name's not on it, but I'll because I'm just going and helping, completing, you know, finishing some episodes and then getting out and going to a different show. So um, yeah, it's helpful to recognize the moment and then
Mm.
be like, let's work.
Right. I
Um,
think what you're saying about being someone that can come into these different projects and be able to succeed, I think is a direct correlation to the crew that you're working with.
yeah,
Can you kind of speak upon the importance of surrounding yourself with a crew that like not only is there to work, but also just like believes in what they're doing? And I guess to caveat that a little bit, in the beginning of your career, the importance of surrounding yourself with crew that is better than you to kind of
yeah,
help kind of not push your career forward, but kind of.
yeah. Well, let me start with that because my second movie, Frank and Lola, I had been doing a lot of
Mhm.
commercials before that, and uh, I was lucky enough to work with my good friend who's a key grip, Don Reynolds, who had done a lot of huge movies. And then I was doing Frank and Lola, and we were shooting in Las Vegas, a very small budget, 1, 2 million maybe. And I needed a gaffer, and I had learned from my first film. I had a film that got canceled. My first film that I was supposed to do got canceled the day before we were supposed to start shooting for the producer fighting.
Heartbreak.
And I had a crew, a gaffer that I had been working with at AFI that I had to back out. And I just realized, oh, I can ask anybody I want to do
Mm.
this. So I ended up getting a really good key
What made
grip.
you realize that?
Well, I didn't realize it. Let me rephrase that. I didn't realize I could get anyone to work who I wanted. I realized I could ask anybody I
Mm.
wanted to work that could work on
Mm.
that could work with. So I just asked, and I ended up a couple great gaffer key grips said yes. Didn't work out, but I took that mentality into my next one. So I ended up John Buckley, who gaffed Titanic, ended up
Wow.
gaffing for me for Frank and Lola because I asked him, and he was like, he wanted to do something cool and small. He knew Don, and he said yes. Uh,
Mm.
and
Is there a
so,
level of like intimidation in a way?
um,
Not intimidation, but like a little maybe nervousness on your part, knowing that you have somebody of this caliber coming. Like, I don't want to say insecurity again, but like, kind of.
yeah, I think for me, no, because I didn't have an ego with it where I'd be like, okay, maybe he won't listen when I tell him what to do.
Mm.
I came into it with the attitude is like I'm going to learn everything I can from him. He's since and then work with him to make the best shots that I can. Tell him what my vision is, and then in the same way that I would expect a director to work with me, I work with my gaffers and my key grips and my operators and be like, "This is my idea. Let's make this better. What's your idea? Like what and then how can you improve on my idea?" Uh,
Mm.
but I don't call it my idea. It's just it's the shot. Um, so I just working with crew to just get the best out of them. And then, you know, John became one of my, lifelong work partners. He passed away during COVID, unfortunately. Um,
Sorry.
so it's and then I take that attitude with every crew member. Like what, you just ask and see who wants to do and who's available. You never know.
That's a good mentality. Yeah.
Was there another part to that question? I forget.
No, I think that was pretty much it. I mean, I guess you can kind of talk, you did already, but just in terms of like working with the crew that you are now and like coming into a project with an already established crew and then kind of
Yeah.
injecting yourself into that project.
Yeah, I think the key is not injecting yourself.
Mm.
I mean, like if you step in, you're like, I'm the DP. This is how we're going to do it. No one's going to want to work with you very well. So it's just about collaboration,
Mm.
learning how to collaborate, and by learning how to collaborate, you can practice outside of set. It's how you deal with people in everyday life. If you demand things of people in a way that is self-effacing, they're not going to respond well. But if you bring the best out of people by having them become part of the process, then everyone responds well to that.
Yeah. Love
Um,
that.
there's always there's always some sort of,
Hmm.
there can be problems, and you just have to figure out problem people, I guess,
Mm,
and you have to figure out ways to work around that. But
right. Hmm.
um,
Have you, this might be a weird question, but like, have you ever had to like pull a crew member to the side and like had to talk with them about something?
yeah, yeah,
Mm,
and um, usually that's from a scenario, a fucked up working environment, two people not working well together, something that someone's brought onto set that's affecting them outside of set,
mm,
something that's part of their personality and they've always been this way, and they haven't worked through their issues, and they have, like there's so many reasons for it. So you have to, when that happens, you have to try and put yourself in their shoes and think, okay, what is the reason why this person is acting this way? Is it something I can solve? If it's something I can solve, let's talk about it. If it's not something I can solve, how else do I deal with that? Um,
mm.
so, sorry.
That's okay. Don't choke.
Try
Yeah.
not. So yeah, it's part of being a leader and managing your team
Mm,
and expectations, and it's difficult because it's not something you want to do. You want to concentrate on the work, but if it's affecting your work, then you have to deal with it
of course.
in a decisive way.
Mm. This might be another question also that you might not have a direct answer to, but I want to lead it kind of into some sort of advice. But do you think that where you are now is like a direct correlation to how you've curated your career versus luck and like happenstance? Like, to, I guess, be a little bit more specific, I do a lot of commercials. I have a feature and I've done probably 8 to 10 short films, but my dream is to do like shows and movies and have a balance with commercials. But I'm trying to figure out, how do I even navigate my career, or is there even no navigating? It's just like, is what it is. Whatever comes my way is how it's going to be.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd say a lot of it is luck and
Mm,
who you meet. Um, just getting those contacts and building those contacts in the world where you want to be, I think, is important. But also the context of the people around you and where you think they're going to be. Because I've had people I've worked with, in early stages that helped me get jobs
right.
later on. So you actually, the answer is you never know.
Mm,
And I think you can put that vibe out there about what you want to do, and you can start creating work in that way. But a lot of it's luck, and a lot of it's placement. If you're right place, right time. It certainly has been like that for my career. Um, you know, I I can't think of any instance where I'd be like, you know what, I want to do this, and then all of a sudden I'm doing that.
right.
It doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Mm,
So, you know, there's no answer.
yeah. I to caveat that too a little bit, I guess what I'm struggling with now is, I get scripts sent to me for short films and certain features as well, and I'm not repped yet, so I don't
Mm.
really have anyone to kind of bounce any of my thoughts off of
Yeah.
in that regard. So I'm struggling to figure out, why do I feel like I have red flags about this project? Is it because I'm unsure about the script? Am I unsure about the money, the budget, the director? Like, how have you like figured out what are red flags and versus what is like nerves potentially? I'm still
Right.
trying to figure out what is the right project to take, and like, am I doing the right thing by saying no to this?
Personally, I feel like if you don't respond to the subject matter, you're not going to do good work,
Mm,
or you won't do your best work. So if this something like, let's say you want to be doing, you know, dark dramas, but it's a romantic comedy, and there's no outside reason besides maybe it's a good director, maybe it's a good producer. I think the people that you're doing the work with is important.
mhm,
If you think they're good, if they think they have a future, if there's someone involved with the project that can get you another job later on, that's an important aspect. Subject matter, if you hate romantic comedies,
Yeah.
someone's asking you to shoot a romantic comedy that you think will look bad and will not help you in any way, don't fucking do it.
Mm,
You, I, I've definitely done projects where I'm like, why did I do that? Like, you know, maybe sometimes it's money and you need to do
mm,
something funny. Um, but that's why it helps to have something other thing to work on to make money sometimes.
mm,
So you have to take the project that you don't want to do.
right.
There's nothing worse than being on something that you don't want to be on because it takes so much time and energy. It's hard to fake it, you know.
Mm. Do you think a lot
Uh,
of it really comes down to just like trusting your gut and like your natural
yeah,
instincts?
I think so. If you're intuitive and you think your gut is good,
Yeah,
then yeah.
true. That's a good
If
point.
it's led you in the wrong way before,
Yeah.
then
Maybe
I don't
don't
know.
trust it
Yeah.
yet.
But you should learn if that's what's happening, then you should tune your gut to
Mm,
better.
mm,
You know, sometimes that's from trial and error, from learning. Oh shit, I didn't want to do that, and I did it, and look how it came out. Look how it happened. I can't do that again. So that goes back to fucking up. It's okay to fuck up.
mm,
And figure out it's just as good to figure out what you don't like by doing it as it is to what you like by doing it
right.
sometimes, because that helps for the future. So,
That's a great point.
some people say, oh yeah, say yes to everything. I don't really believe in that because, you know, some things don't help you,
Mm,
but you have to think, what's going to help you and what's not going to help you. Um, and you finding a peer group if you don't have the agent or someone to is helpful to like bounce ideas
mhm.
off of and say, hey, like,
Yeah, I definitely have some people that I have, been able to bounce back and forth, but I feel like the agent thing is something that I feel like I'm almost at the point where I should have one at this point, but I'm really not sure how to even go about that yet. Because some people say they come to you, some people say you should go out to them. I don't know yet.
well, there's no answer to that, but it's happened with both for some people.
Yeah.
But I think agents need something to sell you.
Hmm.
So if you had a film at a film festival
Hmm.
that's done well, if you've had a commercial that's gotten publicity, if you've had a short film it's harder with short films because the generally what's the market for
Sure.
that?
Yeah.
But yeah, unless it's won like a ton of major awards um, it's they need something to sell you. So I've seen some of my peers at AFI that got agents right away, and that
Hmm.
didn't really help them because they had nothing to sell. Eventually, they were good and they got where they needed to be, but like, um, so it's really what can you? There's a myth that like the agent gets you all the work. A lot of it's word of mouth and
Hmm.
who you know, and a lot of times they're pushing you towards projects that are out there and that they do get you work. But like you need to help them help you
Of course.
in a lot of
Yeah, I think
ways.
that what I would really benefit a lot from is just like the negotiation aspect of like, I know my rate should be here, I should be getting this, but I don't want to be the person that fights with the producer and, whoever else before I'm even on set. So I know like
Yeah,
that to me would be a huge benefit.
yeah, that's true. But one way to deal with that too is don't consider it a fight. Consider be like, hey, this is actually my rate. Like,
Mm, mm,
be okay to walk away from something.
right,
They're saying if your rate is let's say 1,000 and they're saying, well, we only have 200, be like, I get that. Sorry, this isn't for me.
right.
But if let me know next time and then walk away. And then sometimes they'll be like, oh, wait, no, we actually
Mm,
can be like, okay,
better. I,
but if you're like, fuck you,
yeah, nah.
then no one's going to want to work with you. So,
Definitely.
that goes back to how you speak with people and, negotiating is part of that too.
Mm,
Producers are used to negotiating. They're used to fucking people over, so it's okay. Like,
right.
you know,
I
you can
guess,
talk.
I guess it's kind of just like understanding that maybe you don't want to be the DP that is like accessible to everyone in a regard. Like you just say yes to everything, you say yes to whatever rate, so everyone kind of just thinks that you're available for everything. So I
Yeah,
guess there is something to say like, oh, if I do say no, that not that that makes me more valuable, but I guess it adds a certain value to myself.
absolutely. The perception and rate is a big thing. So if you're the DP that works at a 500 a day and you always take that job, you don't set a line where you want to be, then you'll always be that person to
Right.
that producer,
Mm.
or that director or whoever. Be like, oh, that's the cheap
Yeah, for sure.
one. So you
I
got
kind
to.
of want to pivot a little bit into the business side because I know that you own a Venice, or you probably own the Venice 2 now, I believe, right?
Yeah.
I also own a Venice myself. What made you want to invest in a camera? Because I know a lot of DPs at your level probably don't care about any of that stuff. So
Yeah.
what made you want to?
I've always been into equipment
Mm,
as a way of furthering my artistic goals, and technology as a way to advancing that. So when I was first starting out, I had a blog that just reviewed equipment, and like I'd use it on set and do a write up about it. And that was a way when I didn't have money to have the manufacturers send me stuff so that I could use it because I wouldn't necessarily have the budget for it, and to be able to use that on
mm,
set. So I've always talked with manufacturers. I've always made friends with them and figure out what's new and what's going on. So I've always had a large amount of equipment. And then I started buying equipment, stuff wanted to use on set. It's a fine line, for lighting, especially because a lot of times a
right.
gaffer will have a truck.
Hmm.
So like for lighting now, I just buy stuff that like maybe no one has that's cutting edge that
Mm,
like isn't out there yet. Or for example, I'm an aperture. Um, what do they call it? Ambassador. And
that's
so
cool.
I'll use a lot of aperture stuff, which they make
Yeah, absolutely.
great lights now. So we'll get some of the new stuff that's not out and try it, and then bring it on a set. Um, but I work with a lot of different
Mm.
manufacturers,
Is there,
and
I was just gonna
for
say, is there
camera.
also something in terms of just like additional rate as well, like from the money side of things?
Oh yeah, for sure. So for I have a lot of camera equipment. I have it at a rental house that
Mm,
will come onto set, as a whatever the camera rental rate. The rental house will deal with that.
hmm.
But it is an additional rate. It's a good way to make additional income and have the equipment that you need. You work through financing to get the equipment that you want. But I'm a big proponent of that. If you are going to use it, not count on the rental house if you have it
Right.
in a rental house to rent it out for you. But if you're going to use it on set, um, I think it's very helpful as a DP. You are running a business in a certain way, and our equipment is a part of that business. So I'm an advocate for having your equipment, renting it out, having it part of the job, and don't be afraid to negotiate that, and using it because you need to figure out additional avenues of
Of
income
course.
to succeed,
Mm.
not just rely on your rate.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've always been a big proponent of. Because a little short story, when I moved from New Jersey, where I am now, to Philadelphia, which is where I started my career as a DP, there was
Mm,
like a little hole in the market where all the trucks started at a 1 ton and went up. And
mm,
at the projects that I was shooting at, it was hard for me to even afford a 1 ton and like afford the lights to fill the 1 ton.
sure,
So I ended up investing in like a 1/2 ton van, filled it with some lighting that I was able to get from some companies and grip. And I was able to kind of be the person that offered this smaller package to a lot of smaller productions.
great,
And for a while, that that helped me tremendously get work, but also provide additional income. And then eventually, I got to the point where I had a gaffer buy into half of that business, where now I don't touch anything at all,
great.
and he's the one that kind of deals with everything. But that was an indicator of like, oh, it's really important to not just be an artist, but to also think about business and entrepreneurship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big part of it, and it's also riding the wave of when to sell that
Yeah.
equipment, when to get new equipment. you always have to be up on what's coming out, what will be coming out, when to. It's almost like the stock market or
Yeah.
gambling. Way you'd be like, okay, I got to get rid of this before this comes out because otherwise the price is going to dive down. So being on top of that, so I started off going to trade shows like NAB,
Okay.
uh,
Do you
Cine.
still?
I do,
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
because I like to see. I just went to the last NAB. I
Mhm.
wasn't able to go to Cinegear because I was working, but I was able to get away to go to NAB and just to talk to the manufacturers. You know, um, talk about what's coming out, maybe get a preview of what they have, so you can be on top of it. I think being on top of the latest technology is always important as a DP
Mhm.
because you need to know the tools that can help you and not just be rely on your team to bring that in because a lot of times they're not on top of the latest tools because
Right.
they're just doing what they
And
have.
they're always working, most
Yeah,
likely. Yeah.
exactly.
Are you
You
the
need
are you the type of DP that kind of is very fixture specific on what you want?
mhm. um Yes and no.
Sure.
I'm always open to hearing other ideas from whether it's my gaffer or key grip or, um, you know, whatever camera equipment. Um, but sometimes they'll be like, oh, the gaffer might have a certain way light that they use that I don't like. So I'll be like, can you try this and see how this works for your process?
Mm.
And then I have a lot of new gear that a lot of times the gaffers aren't used to using. So I try and work them into using it so they get comfortable with it because they
Mhm.
need to be comfortable with it and they need to think of it when they have the problem. So, as you're building a project, be like, okay, I actually think this light will work for this here. What do you think about trying that? And then we'll, have them try it. And then you want to get to the point where they think of it to
Right.
work.
Mm.
But I'm also always open to other ideas because I never feel like my idea is the best idea. I feel like
Absolutely.
the best idea will come if I hear it, you know? So I'm always open.
Mm. I want to switch to a new topic of just relationships really quick
Sure.
because you have a wife. I just got married last month.
Congrats.
Thank you. I've been with her for 10 years already, so she's kind of been through every part of my journey. So she understands the business, she understands the complexity and just like what I want to do.
Yeah.
But how, at a level of you shooting for 7 months, do you manage to kind of still do it? Like, how, like,
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that because it's not talked about a lot.
yeah.
So relationships are incredibly difficult in our business, as we talked about earlier. So it's about understanding. Um, it's about understanding the business and about setting expectations. I go home. This last job was in New Mexico, so I would go home on weekends a
Mm,
bunch. I went home like 5 or 6 times. That's all the time I had. She came out once just because we have an asshole cat at home that no one wants to take care of. That we have a hard time finding someone to take care of. If anyone out there wants to take care of our cat while I'm
yeah,
gone,
hit them up.
hit me up. He did this to my eye
Oh
just for
man.
one. But it's hard. You have to get used, especially on TV, used to being alone a lot, and then talking all the time, communicating. How are you feeling? It's about communication.
Mm,
It's really the same as the relationships. I mean, not the same because I'm not kissing my gaffer, but like, you know, the same as being on set. It's just being open with your and talking through your feelings and your emotions, and there'll be ups and downs, but like, um, your partner has to understand not just your love for her, but your love for art in
right.
this business and be in partnership with you on it. And just mitigating those ups and downs. It's
Mhm.
really hard.
I think maybe this is something that I'm learning, and maybe you've had a similar experience of, you know, most of the time when I come home from a commercial or just a day on set, 9 times out of 10, I've had a great day. Like,
Mhm.
I love what I do. So I come home, I want to talk about my day. That
Yeah.
sometimes I forget to even like consider her day or like
Right.
consider her passions, consider her life. Cause I'm
Right.
so involved in what I like and what I love. I've had to stop and think and like reset myself and be like, oh, yeah, not always about you. Let's see what
Mhm.
she's feeling right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. And the beautiful thing is you're aware of it. So even when you come home, sure, you could talk about your day and what you would have, but you have to consider the other person
Right.
and what they're feeling and how you're not there at the moment for them, and how that's affecting them. I'm assuming she's not in the
Mm-mm.
business, so um, it's her understanding the psychology of what you go through in a day is
Mm-hmm.
important, but also you understanding what she's going through every day is highly important. And it's just being aware,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to connect, not just from your perspective, but from her perspective and her level too. It's important,
All right. Amazing.
but you're being aware
Yeah.
is a
The
lot of
first
people aren't
step.
aware of that. So
Hmm. Yeah,
that's
I'm
great.
very cognizant of it, and I think something that has kept us, we've been together since high school, is our communication and just like
Great.
openness and honesty. So part of the reason I started this podcast from the very beginning was I'm fairly young. I'm 26, and when I started working as a DP, I was 23, and I was working with gaffers that were 40 years old, that were husbands and fathers, and
All
they
right.
would just talk to me about their relationship, their kids, and they would just share so much knowledge with me and like insight into how I can become a better, husband or father one day. That I was like, oh,
Right.
let me just, I want to create a platform where I can actually talk about this with so many different people.
Great.
Because I think it's really important. I think people struggle with it often.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the questions you ask because they're not asked a lot, and I think it's important, for people to talk about all of these things,
Mhm.
because the tools that you have offset that you bring onto set are just as important as your eye and
Yeah,
your artistic tools. The mental tools are almost as important, if not more important, actually.
definitely. I
Uh,
got two questions left. The one I want to talk about is just Ransom Canyon. Just like anything you could share, I would love to know like what to expect from it, and maybe just like uh, maybe something new that you learned while shooting that project that you didn't expect.
Right. Oh, good question. Yeah, Ransom Canyon. It's a ranch drama, with a lot of romance and melodrama, drama. Different than a lot of my other projects. I shot the pilot, the first episode. So this is actually the first show that I'm entirely myself. Well, not the first show, the second show that I'm just building the look
Mm,
on my own, and so that's a whole different set of responsibilities than when you're the alternate DP.
mhm.
So you're making all of the decisions from crew to camera to
Right.
lighting to all of that. So those that brings on more responsibility, more pressures, more, which is great. And it was the longest I've been away. So learning from that, learning how to deal with that. Um, but I had an incredible crew, my camera team, my grip electric were all amazing. Most of them were from New Mexico and they were
That's great.
like notch. And then I brought in a few collaborators that I worked with a bunch already, my operators. So it was a great experience. And the director was Amanda Marsalis, who I
Yeah.
directed
So
Ozark,
good.
um, who
So
I'd
good.
worked with. So that was great. It's good. It's being away is hard, but like that experience of building something from the ground up is really fun. And working with April Blair, the showrunner,
Mhm.
who's incredible, and Netflix, who's a great partner. The new studios out there in Albuquerque, so, and they're building more, so a
Yeah.
lot of work is
They
headed
just
that way.
bought like 100+ acres in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
heard they're going to be everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, something new I learned. I mean, it's hard to say out of context,
Sure.
aside from building the look. Um, but
I mean, that could be your answer. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we did 10 episodes, which is the most series are 8 episodes that I've done, so it's a lot of episodes. Um, and it was shorter amount of days. It was probably than I'm used to per episode. So learning to work quickly. We started off with 2 cameras, ended up with 3 cameras,
Well,
um, uh, and sometimes 4, depending on the
mhm.
scenes. I did that on Linus a lot where we would have up to 7 cameras sometimes. So,
Ooh,
learning what screen to look at
right.
is a hard thing. It's with 3 cameras, it's a lot easier and you're
More manageable.
figuring out how to get into the coverage that way. Linus was more action.
Mm,
So, you're picking up little bits with all these different cameras. This is dialogue heavy Ransom Canyon. So it's more, figure out what the best way to place the cameras and still get the amount of coverage that we needed for the show. So there's a lot of Tetris
yeah.
going on.
Awesome.
Figure
Yeah.
it out.
Stoked to see it when it comes out.
Uh,
Last question is my final question that I usually ask, and it's you where you are now in your career and in your life, and you're sitting across the table from the version of you that just graduated from AFI. What advice would you give that younger version of you as you're about to embark on a serious career?
I wouldn't say anything. I would
Mm,
just listen, um, because I wouldn't want to influence in any way that arc or that path. I feel like the steps you take are the steps you're meant to take, and figuring it out is part of the journey. Um, so I would just watch.
amazing. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Where can people find you? Feel free to share your website, Instagram, whatever you want
My
to.
Instagram is Eric Koretz. It's KORERICKORETZ_DP. My website just has some stuff on it. erickoretz.com. Um, that's it. Those are
Awesome.
my avenues of social
Yeah,
media.
amazing. Well, thank you for taking the time today. I really enjoyed this
Yeah.
conversation a lot.
Thanks. Me too. This was great.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you. I will see you next time. Peace out.